come once again to discuss things.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Pardew. Joining me today is Steve Baxey, the hardest working man on YouTube, and Ozzy Griffin. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey, everyone.
Hello, gentlemen.
See, Ozzy listens to instructions. Steve, you don't.
I'm a free spirit, damn it. I cannot be contained by the words you want me to say.
Steve, I keep telling all our reviews and videos together would be so much easier if you just follow the script that I give you. And it's such an easy script. Yes, Ian, you are right. I'm an idiot.
This is what I've missed right here.
Anyway, so this will be an interesting video because I talked about this a little bit last week when I announced the topic, but so we've done this a number of times where we've recorded an episode and something went wrong with it and we just couldn't post it. It just happened where recording things kind of went haywire or whatever. This topic is one that we wanted to do originally when Steve first came on Geeky Gentlemen.
It's over a year ago now, yeah.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago. You're getting old.
I know.
Anyway, so we wanted to do this originally, and we got through the whole episode, and we didn't notice any problems. And then I get to the next day, and I start editing it, and there was just at that same interval throughout the entire episode, and there was nothing I could do about it, everyone. Weird. So, unfortunately, we had to scrap that episode, and I don't believe in trying to recapture a conversation in a podcast because it never works.
Never works. So,
we waited almost 2 years, and now we're coming back to discussing found footage. And this should be exciting. So, this was originally one of Deadpoolzilla's topics, and I haven't talked to that dude in over a year.
Really? I thought you had just a couple of months ago, or was it felt like that? God.
No, he
You're
just
right,
kind
we're getting old. It's official. Getting old.
Yep. Anyway, so this was originally one of his topics, but it is an interesting beast because it seems like it's a property that gained a lot of fame really quickly and then kind of petered off.
Yeah.
I think that's mainly because of how easy it is to do, right?
Probably. It's interesting that we do that now, because when we talked about that topic, it was at the tail end of its popularity, and now people don't do it anywhere near as much.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last one that came out?
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's going back a bit. Just in the horror genre alone?
Or just any genre, really. I
think it's really the Paranormal Activity movies, technically.
What was the last one?
If you mean just purely found footage?
Yeah.
With a little, the editing... Oh, jeez. When was the last one of that?
I think it's been at least a year since we had one.
Yeah.
It has really dropped off, and...
I don't know,
it's one of those interesting things where I think it was way overused, but it's a neat idea for a movie. It is a really, really clever and interesting conceit. It just got used improperly, is the argument I think I'd make for found footage.
Found footage is one of those genres. I can't believe it's a genre. It's one of those techniques where, done correctly, it's kind of like Mad Max Fury Road. Viewed correctly, the audience is clever enough to piece it all together when you've got one or two things that link everything all together, so you can figure out what's going where. Done correctly, that's how you do it. But done incorrectly, oh my god.
Done incorrectly, you can get a seizure or very, very bad headache from just watching one. Yeah, like I think it's something that's rose in popularity so quickly because of how damn easy it was to do. And, love it or hate it, and believe me, I'm in the hate it camp, how much fucking money Paranormal Activity made, because its budget was like $5 a shoestring and a piece of used gum.
Yeah, I mean, like, even though those movies do badly, they make money, so it becomes popular simply for that convenience.
Yeah. But then, like, the audiences got over it fairly quickly. It was a pretty passing fad, I think you could call it.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty charitable way to put it.
Part of the problem is we never used found footage to talk about found footage, if that makes any sense. Like, part of the interesting thing about that idea is that it's not completely original. It goes back to the idea of having, like, journal entries in books as your chapters. And part of why that works is because as a reader you have that separation and you can think about the perception of the person you're reading through. But I've never seen a found footage movie that made you question the footage itself.
I
feel like sometimes that's important because movies like Chronicle, which I like a lot, has that issue of, like, who's editing this together?
See, I don't know, maybe that's just the problem of what started all of this, with Blair Witch announcing itself as if it had been footage that was legitimately found and sliced together and now distributed across the audience. Because for me, watching Chronicle, like, I can give you maybe like a, fan-splanation of how all that footage is brought together, but ultimately, my thing with Chronicle is, no, that's just the style of filmmaking, is you're seeing it from the perspective of different cameras, as opposed to from a actual camera. No person has compiled it all together. Like I said, if you really want to call it found footage, I think that's just, like, baggage that the name brings to the thing. I don't think that it's legitimately always supposed to be footage a person went out and found and cobbled together.
No, okay, that's fair. I guess my deeper point would then just ultimately be, like, cameras can be wrong. You can play tricks with cameras. I mean, that's how we make films, is that we do clever things with cameras, and we never use a found footage movie to talk about that. Like, I've never seen a found footage movie about perception.
I was talking to one time about doing a horror parody film on the found footage genre. And, like, at the end, like, it was going to reveal that the first person to die was just controlling everything from, like, a little puppet room, and had set up and they had, like, live feeds of the cameras so they always knew what was going on or something.
So that person dies, they can't control everything else. Interesting idea.
No, they were... No. The first person that, quote-unquote, dies... Never mind.
Okay.
Whoosh.
Another discussion for another...
Hope you're not wearing a hat, Ozzy.
I don't wear a hat. I'm wearing headphones. Anyway, you were saying.
Oh, Christ. Okay. Ozzy is in anti-joke mode right now. It's just, he's like a Sheldon right now. Anyway.
Nothing goes over his head. He'll catch it.
No, like, the joke was that the person was gonna, like, fake their death and then control all these weird bullshit gadgets in the house to, like, kill or scare all the friends, and all the friends were, like, filming it. But they didn't know. It's whatever. Anyway. No, but that's to your point, though, Steve, about, like, we never talk about the fact that cameras can lie in found footage movies, because, like, there is something that feels authentic about, this is footage on the street, this is, like, you can't deny this footage, but there's that, it's a really, really bad Martin Lawrence movie, I'm sure, but there's this one where he gets, like, pulled over by a cop, and the cop, like, gets him out of the car, and, like, a bee starts flying around them, and Martin Lawrence's character is, like, allergic to bees, so he, like, freaks out and drops down on the ground, and the cop is trying to swat it with his baton, and it just looks like and someone shoots it from across the street, and since the bee isn't big enough to show up on their shitty camera, it looks like the cop is just beating the shit out of Martin Lawrence with his baton, and then Martin Lawrence is like, his face is all swollen because he ends up getting stung by the bee, and so the whole world just assumes that this cop just beat the shit out of this guy for no fucking reason. And it's like this whole thing about, it's actually a really good commentary on the fact that cameras don't always tell you the truth. And that's an interesting thing to talk about after we've had all these police violence videos too. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, the trick with a found footage movie is either, like you said, there's a third way to do it, which is what you're talking about, which is parody, which is, don't get me wrong, absolutely hilarious. But
a Haunted House kind of did that. A Haunted House 1 and 2 did that.
I'll give you that one.
That was by the guys that did the first 2 Scary Movies, and like it's like the most raunchy fucking thing ever.
I've not seen Haunted House in so long.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking ridiculous. Like at one point, they go to sleep, and then the wife wakes up in the morning and is like, wow, you were really good last night. And like the ghost apparently had sex with her. And like the next night, like she goes and like stays at her mom's or whatever, and the next night the ghost comes back for seconds and it just ends up having sex with Martin Lawrence, or with what's his name?
Said Martin Lawrence.
Not Martin Lawrence. One of the Wayans brothers is in that. It ends up having sex with the Wayans brother. And it's like you could just see him like, sorry everyone for this visual, you just see the guy's ass cheeks get spread by like a ghost, and then it just like cuts to black as you hear that was really, really fucking crude, raunchy movie that just parodied Paranormal Activity to death. The same vein as a scary movie, but just more raunchy, disgusting stuff.
Yeah. I'd like to pity him. I'd want to pity him. I can't. Screw him. But yeah, so like I was saying, so there's the parody angle of the found footage movie. There's the what do you call it? There's the mystery angle to the found footage movie, and then there's the horror or disaster angle to the found footage movie. Like I've forgotten what it was, but it was a disaster movie a couple of years
Cloverfield?
No, not Cloverfield. This was an earthquake filmed from 5 different points of view.
Earthquake.
With the survivors occasionally overlapping, but they all start from a common point. They all have a counter down the bottom showing that it's happening simultaneously.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've not heard of that. What was the...
I need a movie like that, but I don't know about Earthquake.
Wasn't there like a movie with Forrest Whitaker? Like, it wasn't 100% found footage, but wasn't there one with like Forrest Whitaker where like an assassination takes place of like a politician or something, and like a bunch of different, like you have a security guard, you have like Forrest Whitaker's character who's like, a tourist filming the whole thing, and like you have a couple other like people that were shooting different things of it. And so, like, the whole movie is about their footage of the event because it's going to be able to expose who the killer was and stuff.
No.
And, like, so, and I think that the assassin's trying to, like, kill the witnesses and get the footage in the process, too.
Did it turn out to be the First Lady?
What?
No, that wasn't the answer. No.
Oh, okay.
Just saying, that's how I'd have written it. No one would have seen that coming.
No, it's just I remember that. I think it's like Point of View or Vantage Point might be the name of it.
Yeah.
That was an interesting idea of like where a camera is and stuff. I'm reminded of another movie, and this isn't like, I guess technically speaking, this is the most literal you could get with found footage. Though once again, the entire movie isn't shot found footage style. It was all about the death penalty, and it was about a guy who's like really, really articulate, advocate against the death penalty, and he he'd go on radio shows and he'd make all these fantastic arguments against it and stuff, but then he ends up getting tried for he ends up getting framed and tried for rape. And during that trial, they go through his apartment looking for evidence and stuff, and they find a videotape of a woman with her arms tied behind her back and a bag taped over her head, slowly suffocating to death on his floor. And they use that to put him on trial for murder, and they convict him and give him the death penalty. And then, there's this other reporter that's, talking to him, interacting with him throughout the whole movie, and she finds a second tape of the exact same thing. Only, you see it's the woman putting the bag over her own head, tying her own hands, and after she finishes suffocating to death, where the original tape cuts, he comes in and goes, "This will be worth it. Once this tape gets out there, they'll never put anyone to death again." And that tape came out after he was executed. So it was this whole argument for, the system is broken and just, how we convict people can be put on any kind of pedestal kind of thing. Based on anything and can be entirely wrong. And I was the most articulate person behind this, and yet you convicted me even though you only had one piece of very circumstantial evidence. Really, really fascinating ideas in that movie. It's been forever since I've seen it, so that's just a very, very rough estimation of the plot.
This could say a lot about found footage movies, that almost none of us can remember the titles of the damn things. Just saying. I mean, it's that movie where those people did that stuff? I'll give found footage movies one thing. They do focus you on the content, and they do give you... They do make the audience really analyze what's happening. That is one thing you can't take away from them. They've got that in spades. Going back to the start of the whole bloody thing, it's with the Blair Witch Project. You really paid attention. You really, focused in on what people were doing and what you're trying to figure out what was behind everybody when they were fleeing for their lives. Or whatever they lost, credibility, whoever. But yeah, what I found was...
hold on, Ozzy. Steve, you were going to say something?
Yeah, bring it.
Oh no, I was just going to follow up at his point whenever you were ready.
Yeah,
I got something to add.
Yep, go ahead.
No, you're finished making your point, though?
Well, I was just going to say, found footage really makes you focus in on the details that you can see. Unless it's M. Night Shyamalan directing them, in which case just drop a fifth of vodka and keep your grip. So yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think there's a progression between found footage movies being subtle to not that happens very, very quickly. Because part of the reason the early found footage movies like Blair Witch work is because the way they're cut forces you to constantly pay attention. You never see too much of anything, and so your mind's always racing because there's just so much going on and things are changing so quickly. The amount of cuts in the film are really, really important. And at a point with found footage movies, they make it so it looks like it was filmed on a handheld, but they just shoot it like it's a regular movie. And so they stop working on that level, and it stops being about you paying attention, it stops being about the way the camera's placed or why it's placed there, and it just becomes a regular movie. And that's part of the reason Paranormal Activity fell apart so quickly, is that by the second and third one, it was just a normal movie with really shitty camera work.
Mm-hmm. And really bad scripts.
Yes, and of course really bad scripts, but yeah.
No, it turns out your aunt's nephew's former roommate was a Satan worshipper.
How long until we just get the Kenny explanation where it's oh, well, Kenny keeps coming back to life because his parents joined a cult.
Yeah, then you don't want to hire another actor, and there's union fees, and look, it's not good.
No, Steve, I do agree with you, and it's interesting because Chronicle kind of did the same thing, but it works there, right?
No, it totally does, yeah.
It is shot like a movie. It's just given the conceit of a found footage film,
And I think part of it works because one of the characters likes filming things. His whole personality exists behind a camera or in front of a camera, depending on what's going on. And so he can afford to shoot it like a movie because he's thinking about his life as if it's a movie.
Yeah, I love those crane shots. That's so fantastic.
That final fight scene is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It does, like, that's the point where I go, okay, how does everyone get all this footage together? And I do agree with you at that point. It is, like, you know, if you're looking for a story explanation of how it's all cut together, yeah, I agree, but at the same time, we're at no point told that anybody did that. So I kind of just assume that it's like, you're just looking at this world through cameras.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the only way you could do a 100% pure found footage movie would have to begin or end with somebody going a little bit meta and filming themselves talking to, like, I don't know, like a university professor or a TV producer, whoever you want to actually cobble this footage together for, with the person going, "No, that wouldn't work as a movie," like that,
and then credits,
or just saying, the classic conspiracy trope of, you know, the Men in Black coming in and ripping up all your footage, but you get footage of them doing that on camera. That's the only way you could about do it. Come think of it, it would probably make for a good Men in Black movie, but that's a whole different thing.
There's a like mockumentary that's all about Hitler surviving World War II, and like he's behind like every major cultural shift in America, from McCarthy all the way up till McDonald's.
Of course he is.
Yeah, of course he is. It's just like all these ridiculous things, and then at the end he's like frozen in cryogenic chamber, and like the filmmakers are banned from being in America, like they have their visas revoked and all this other shit. It's really fucking funny.
You gotta shoot me a link for that. That's at least the IMDb.
Oh my god, I do not remember.
Funny.
Yeah, I wish I could remember. It's about, you know, like, just search mockumentary Hitler survives World War II. It's pretty
and that's pretty specific details, so I'm sure I'll find something.
Yeah.
I am muting microphone just like...
No, but like I do like the found footage genre too, and to your points about you have to acknowledge that you're filming it at a certain point, though.
Right.
That's why I love the Joker blogs. You know, you can't really get this now, but as someone who found the Joker blogs YouTube series very, very early on, and I'm very disappointed in that show for not updating it over a year now. Probably close to 2 years now. Once again, we're getting old. Anyway, as someone who found the Joker blog series really early on, I got to follow along with that series as it was originally being uploaded to YouTube. And there's like this great line in I think the second or third episode where he goes, can you say, or like he says something to the camera, and you hear Dr. Quinzel say, "Why are you saying that to the camera?" And he goes, "I'm going to have a friend of mine upload this to YouTube." And like so it becomes this running gag about, and like all the characters are acknowledging that somehow all of these like, you know, medical therapy sessions that are being videotaped are somehow ending up on YouTube. Like people they don't know how he's making it happen, but he is. And he goes, they're like, "Well, it needs to stop because it's making the hospital look foolish." Well, there are going to be a lot more people who are upset that the episodes aren't getting posted anymore. And he looks at the camera again. So it's really, really fun to be a part of that, and like, you know, because you know it was engaging you as a member of the audience, and that felt really, really cool. And then like even stuff on the website, like on the YouTube page, would be alluding to the fact that it was, you know, supposed to be pirated videos that are being uploaded and stuff, and I just thought that was brilliant.
It's kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah, so you can certainly use found footage in really intriguing ways when you get right into it. It's just, it's a matter of how much can you engage your audience. Like, how much do modern audiences want to engage with something in that way.
And I mean, we talk about it as a genre because of how many movies are completely found footage, but just like anything else, it is a technique. There is a good and bad way to use it, and you don't have to make an entire movie found footage to use the found footage tool. You also don't have to make an entire movie just shot traditionally and not throw found footage stuff in there somewhere, or have that be the context for it.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of movies now are kind of transitioning back and forth, and that's good. Because, you transition to that when it's actually useful, as opposed to trying to contrive ways to make, a shot not just somebody's shaky-ass hand.
And, I mean, even when you look at, just traditionally how cameras work, and the idea that when a camera is stable and you have, a wide shot, and that it shows whatever character's in frame is strong. And if a camera is shaking, then it shows that no one's in control. And then if you do a found footage movie in that way, then you can constantly shift between those two things and talk about who's in control and who isn't. And so at some point it stops being this gimmick to sell your movie and give you cheap scares, and just becomes about revealing things about the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is one thing that I found that can be well done, and occasionally just gotten wrong on so many levels. But there was an example I shot to Ian of it was like the McPherson tapes or something. Basically, alien abduction caught on video. Funnily enough, all the power goes out in the house except for the cameras. Go figure. But there's a couple of little tropes you can use with the found footage, which is where the camera hits the ground and then it stops moving. This can usually set up an ambiguous shot that may or may not reveal somebody's identity. Or it shows somebody either dying or being unable to move. If you want to establish a clean shot, or zoom in on it using digital zoom or whatever to show that you're trying to enhance the footage, this can actually be a really effective technique. Or if you use it in the wrong way, like that production did, it just looks shite. Just to use a technical filmmaking term.
Ozzie Griffin's graduated from the most prestigious film school in his apartment. It's gonna sound weird, but I wonder how many other people are bothered by this. So, these found footage movies look like they're just people, we got a camera, let's play around with it. That's how almost all of them open, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Does it bother anyone else that these are, the most professional-looking cameras half the time? These are, $5,000 cameras?
That bugs the crap out of me with some of those, where, look, I paid $300 for this thing, it doesn't look half as good as that shit.
Right? Right? My camera I paid, $400 for. It's in HD, it's what I shoot comic reviews on, but, come on, it's I can hold it in one hand. I got the guy in Paranormal Activity 1, and he's got, the fucking booms on it and everything, and I'm just how the fuck? What?
And yeah, I guess to some of the unrealistic things that take me out of those movies were, clearly these are people that know how to use cameras, despite being characters that don't know how to use cameras.
Right?
It's really confusing and annoying.
That always just bugs the living hell out of me. Once again, it works better in Chronicle because, they talk about the fact that it's an expensive camera.
But then part of the problem is that a lot of times these movies involve teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are these kids running around with clearly $1,000 cameras that both know how to use them and not know how to use them whenever it's convenient for the plot.
Yeah. Certainly. And, that's one of the things that bothered me, because, I've filmed movies when I was in high school. You know what kind of camera I had? I had my mom's VHS camera from the 90s. The ones where you had to, take the little cassette out and then put it into a VHS tape so you could watch it. You want to know how we edited that movie? We took the cassette out, put it into the VHS tape, put it into a VCR, had the VCR run into the computer in order to get the footage. So it could be edited.
That's
cool. I'm just waiting for you to go, then we had to incant a spell from the Necronomicon just to get the thing to code properly.
Well, obviously. I didn't even feel like that was worth mentioning. I also had to turn the computer on, Ozzy. Come on now.
It's so much better than the good old days when you had to use goat's blood to get it to all work.
Yeah, I mean,
I
God,
get
you
that,
remember where you had to load the goat's blood on those old laptops?
Oh, I know, and they used to come in 2 different sizes, and not all the computers could hold the discs.
And then, for God's sake, if the printer ran out of ink.
Yeah. Lovecraft.
That's an interesting thought. Dot matrix printer that uses goat's blood ink for spells. Got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I'm on.
No, that's like it always seemed like it was a really nitpicky thing to me that I always felt like was really stupid to mention, but I'm glad someone else shares my problem with that.
No, it bugs the crap out of me too. But I'm on Wikipedia right now, just looking at their list of found footage movies. The last 2 that were big in any way were Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension, which no one fucking saw, and The Visit, which was the M. Night Shyamalan movie that looked hysterical.
Oh my God, I saw the trailers for that. I'm like, there's no way this isn't a comedy.
I know. Apparently it's really, really good, but I just thought it looked too damn funny.
Well, like the one I was just talking about movies my friends and I made. So like I said, we filmed it on my mom's old VHS camera from the 90s. We taped over our home movies, which my mom was thrilled to find out about, by the way.
Mothers love that shit, yeah.
Yeah, we taped over our home movies, but you know, like every so often when you're working with tape, like you'll skip a second or two in between takes. So in between 2 takes, there's like this clip of my brother opening up a Christmas present. He got a game of Yahtzee, and he goes, Yahtzee! And then it cuts to, you know, someone being, I don't know, sliced to death or whatever. And then I see the trailers for The Visit, and, like, they're playing Yahtzee, and, like, they roll, and, like, he looks at the dice, and then the grandma gets really close to the camera, it's like, Yahtzee! And I just couldn't help but think of anything else but my stupid fucking movie that I made in high school.
Also, what's scary about saying Yahtzee?
I don't know, Steve.
There was that trailer where the grandmother's like, oh, go ahead, get in the oven. I'm like, okay. I don't care who you are or how well you know this grandmother. When someone tells you to get into the oven, something's wrong. And she's just trying to play it off like it's this. No, it's totally normal. Get inside the oven and clean it for me.
Oh my God.
That's
yeah, I agree. That movie looked just ridiculously stupid.
And apparently it's good, but I didn't see it because it looked awful.
Yeah,
I'm not going to give it the time of day.
I had to mention this to you guys. Ian, Steve, I have to thank both of you because it wasn't until I did a bit of research on found footage for this podcast that I got to use a phrase from America that I've only just come to know and love, clown shoes. I'm beginning to appreciate that more and more because, God damn it, there are some shitty examples of found footage movies where you're just like, really? I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief for this? You know, either... I think with suspension of disbelief, it's kind of like circumcision. You know, you either go all the way trying to make it happen, or you forget about it, you know? And... Sorry, I borrowed one from Robert Williams on that one. But yeah, it's just one of those cases where you either have to sell that someone's reaction is genuine, and that means you have to get the set dressing right, you have to get the costume work right, the casting has to be right. There's a lot you have to get right. But, fuck, man. The real problem here is you've got to, what do you call it? If you don't sell it, then you're just setting yourself up for parody. Once again, see Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's just like, you know, I saw, like, clips of the first Paranormal Activity. I remember the whole, you know, demand it in your theater campaign they had, which, by the way, brilliant marketing campaign.
Oh.
I'll hand it that much. Brilliant marketing campaign. But I remember seeing all that, and then, like, I watched some clips in the movie. Full disclosure, I've never watched any Paranormal Activity movie for more than 2 minutes. I saw clips of the movie, I'm like, I could fucking shoot this. Why are people afraid of this? Like, I remember hearing people talk about, like, oh my God, she stood in the hallway for, like, 4 hours. No, they just sped up the little time code thing. The actress stood there for, like, 10 minutes. How is anyone fooled by this? Are people just a lot dumber than even I thought?
I noticed that older people liked those movies more when they came out, and I wonder if part of it, the disconnect between them, is we don't do home movies anymore, really. Like, the whole idea of like, having a tactile VHS that we record and watch people with and fast forward, and there's a different kind of humanity to that just doesn't exist when you just film things with cell phones and upload them to YouTube right away.
Yeah.
So I think part of the reason that both you and I probably don't find them scary is just that sense of it is just so far removed.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I kind of remember that time of, like, home video and stuff.
I mean, I do too. I just have no nostalgia for it.
Steve, are you telling me that eventually there's going to be a found footage movie that's made up entirely of vines?
Yes.
Yes.
I am looking forward to seeing that movie. No, because there was almost...
That will be the death of cinema, right there. Because it'll all be vertical. Oh, no.
I can't.
Kids,
stand that.
turn your phones 90 degrees, you fucking little shit.
I can't believe people do that. I fucking hate it.
Oh my god. It's a 90-degree angle. How hard is it?
You see, that,
Okay.
If they I'm not going to get into it too hard, but you see, they made a Ghostbusters remake with a meme showing a meme that says "lol owned" in there somewhere. That'd be more believable. Anyway.
Yeah. No, found footage is a really interesting topic. Shit, I was gonna go somewhere. Okay, like we've talked a lot about just found footage itself. Does anyone else have any other points they want to talk about with found footage itself? Because if not, I'd like to move into why it's not around so much anymore, or what it's like kind of turned into.
It's black and white. No.
Okay. Because, like, I don't know, I find it really interesting. You know, we still get them every so often. You know, Steve, you mentioned The Visit.
Rekill.
But I think it's interesting that one of the first really big ones, like, from the new era of it, obviously not counting Blair Witch, was Cloverfield.
Yes.
And now the sequel to Cloverfield doesn't look like it's going to be found footage at all.
It's not.
They're making a sequel to Cloverfield.
Yeah, it didn't get announced until, like, last month.
Yeah, it's like a spiritual success of that film, the way J.J. Abrams called it, because it has nothing to do with Cloverfield. It's just in that universe somewhere.
Huh.
Well, I mean, I'd assume after a giant monster attacks New York, you've kind of got a problem.
I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. It's called
think.
10 Cloverfield Lane, and it's not found footage at all. It's just a traditional story, and if you knew nothing about Cloverfield, then you would still be able to see it.
Okay. No, but I find it interesting that the sequel to the big found footage movie is not found footage at all.
Mm.
That's really, really telling of what happened to this craze in filmmaking.
Yeah, no, that's actually probably a better way to put it. It was a craze for a bit. I mean, the thing was, you know, if as Steve was saying before, when you focus on found footage as an artifact, not as a different perspective for conventional filmmaking, you look at it's like what fans inevitably do. Hey, let's be honest, we are all fans. You look at the minutiae, you look at you're trying to figure stuff out from the clues that are there. And that, for a lot of people, is enthralling. It's the reason why we watch, crime dramas on TVs. It's the reason we read whodunits, if you're into that. It tantalizes the mind, and that is a thoroughly entertaining thing. You know, like, ooh, what's he doing with this? What's this going to lead to? How does this all connect?
Actually,
trying to put it all together. It's good for that.
I wouldn't say it tantalizes the mind. It takes a border away from the audience, in my experience at least.
Yeah.
Sticking with JJ, like, everyone hates on his Star Trek movies, and I don't think they're that bad. They are definitely Star Trek. I'll tell you that much. But like, one thing that I found really interesting is if you watch the scenes that take place in space, he often has the cameras shake a little bit. And he, of course, does his favorite thing, and in the space scenes, in the CGI renders that are not there at all, he'll have lens flares show up. There will be scenes where, like, you'll see the Enterprise pass past a star, and the star will put lens flare on the camera. And you know what? It feels more real than any other scene I've seen in space because of that lens flare. Because then it actually felt like someone went out there and shot it. And you know, people hate on Man of Steel all day, but that fight scene between Superman and Zod, with how shaky everything is, and the destruction of Krypton in the beginning of the movie, with how shaky and how, like, damn intense everything feels. It feels like I'm actually, like, there's people actually there. There's a camera crew putting their lives at risk to shoot this planet blowing up, or these two titans fighting in the middle of a city that's being destroyed. It makes it feel more realistic than, you know, still cameras or panning perfectly smooth camera work.
Right. I mean, that just goes back to it being a technique before it's a genre.
So I think it's honestly a good thing that it's died off from this, you know, huge fad thing and transitioned to something just to add a new dynamic to filmmaking that was kind of always there but never really utilized.
Right. Just to speak on Cloverfield before we get too far away from that, part of what I like about that movie is it wasn't made because of a found footage resurgence, or because it was trying to play along with that fad, but because it had this really interesting idea of, regardless of how horrible something is, people have this bizarre need to document and to categorize things, and that takes on really strange extremes in the 21st century when everything's on the internet. And so that movie sort of became about the motivation behind recording something in the first place, and so the found footage motif worked for it.
Certainly. And, like, for anyone that says, oh, well, any normal person would just run away. No, because there's so much video of 9/11.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought that's part of what made it interesting. And it's weird that the early found footage movies are the ones that best utilize its techniques.
Right.
And then afterwards, they all just kind of become weird cash grabs.
And see, I haven't seen District 9 yet. I'm curious about that one.
I don't like that movie. It's the problem that a lot of the later ones have, where at some point it forgot that someone has to be filming these things.
Yeah.
And it just stops making sense.
Gotcha.
And it never worked for me after that.
Gotcha. And I mean, to be fair, I love the Joker blogs, but that does get a little hard to believe that someone will just, you know, like, he goes into a wedding and shoots the priest and the groom and just, like, motions to one of the guests that's filming to follow him with the camera. And the guy does, and you know, there's, like, a cool scene with Batman, and Batman apparently doesn't give a shit about the guy with the camera pointing it right at his face.
Apparently.
It's just a little bit awkward. But at the same time, the guy with the camera's giving a color commentary, so I can't really complain, because he was hilarious. And he was, what's his name? The Creeper? Yeah, the Creeper. Yeah, it was Jack Reach, the Creeper.
He's so much fun.
Certainly. So, you know, there's stuff like that where, like, if you acknowledge that someone's filming at some point, then you do have to keep that going. And that's one thing I like about Chronicle, is there's always conceit of how this is being captured on film.
Yes.
It's not like one of the characters using a camera, like it's you know, security footage or something else. And
right.
So, I mentioned this earlier, and once again, I think that criticism of Chronicle comes more just from the name of the style as opposed to anything the story tells you.
I'm just doing something. Hold on.
But if you were to like search out or try to come up with a story explanation for how all this footage comes together in Chronicle, my argument would be, well, two superheroes flew around the city, you know, lifting shit and throwing each other through buildings, and there were cameras and security footage. Someone is going to, like, some government official, some agency that has the resources to actually get a hold of all this footage would find it and at least conceivably attempt to put it all together. So that was always my in-story explanation that I could give, and they do give like hints to some kind of government cover-up.
Yeah.
At points in that movie. So.
Okay. If I'll tell you what, there is one thing I wanted to add, but Steve, you go first.
Okay, I just want to make a really brief comment, or just an interesting note that I was looking through with these Wikipedia's entries on found footage movies, but I noticed that the ones we keep talking about that we like Cloverfield and Chronicle, are really short. And the one that was initially successful with Paranormal Activity, the first one, is really short. They're like anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes, and they just get progressively longer. And I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
And they like Paranormal Activity in the extreme tried harder and harder to get gimmicks going. Like at one point they used the Xbox Kinect.
Yeah, what the hell was up with that?
I don't know what the idea was. I remember Bobby gave me a review of Paranormal Activity 4. He goes, it's a daring movie. It does things that other movies, it does things that other movies don't, and it doesn't do things that other movies do, like have a plot.
No. Let's be honest here. It was deserved.
Shout outs. Yeah.
But that's true, though. It's true. That's part. That goes back to what I was saying before about my theory on tantalizing the viewer. The short, brief thing that only exists for a few seconds. When you're trying to squeeze more meaning out of it, the audience's minds work harder. In fact, there's more than a few, take the Manchester Poltergeist video. Now that is not a professional bit of filmmaking. That is allegedly real life poltergeist activity. But once again, it's shit that, I can see any, like you said, any producer with a couple of bucks and a little bit of technical know-how could fake. Like the old, files flying out of the filing cabinet trick.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that with, what is it, rubber bands and a timer?
I have no idea.
Okay. It makes it look like files are just flying out of the cabinet.
I know what you're talking about. I have no idea how you do it. I was assuming they put a leaf blower or something underneath the file cabinet.
No, it does it one or two after the other, but yeah, there's ways to do it. But
sure.
Yeah, but this is something. But just to give an alternate take on this, it's not just the professional cinematic universe that does this genre now. People faking stuff for shits and giggles. There was what did you call it? Like the fake alien autopsy movies, stuff like that. Technically speaking, that's found footage stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, it's pretty easy to figure out, what's, where the wires are and everything else. But, I'm just saying that's another example of it. And it's all about, some of it is about tantalizing your audience and trying to get them to figure stuff out. And some of it is just pandering to your audience before they can realize they've been had and demand their money back. There was a famous episode.
Who would have been really good at found footage? P.T. Barnum.
You would have friggin' rocked at that. The guy that gave the world the modern circus. Now, what do you say? There's a sucker born every minute?
That's not actually him. That's a misattributed quote.
Really?
No, P.T. Barnum was actually kind of a good guy. He just kind of got a bad rap as a con man.
I wouldn't give him a rap as a con man. He really did. He gave people what they wanted, and he charged money for it.
Yep.
I hate to say it, but that is the nature of entertainment. You want to?
He had like a kind of this, he called it a museum of the weird, kind of like what Ripley's has now.
Yeah.
And he had, signs that, he had problems with moving people out of there because, they got so excited to be in there that they wouldn't leave fast enough, so he couldn't put more people in. So he had, really long lines. So he put up signs for, this way to the great El Éxito or whatever. And it was, it looked like the word eagle or something, but really in Italian or whatever, it just meant exit. And so it was a door that as soon as you walked out, you couldn't get back in, and you had to go around the building to get back in. Because you needed people to move out of there faster.
Nice.
I really like that.
Yeah, and it's like that line from the X-Files. Like there's one episode where Fox Mulder picks up an alien autopsy video, and he just goes, "I'm going to see that I got my $12.95 worth." It's just it was a beautiful juxtaposition of his lifelong quest to expose the paranormal or the hidden, and he's like, "Yeah, I picked this up at Walmart for a couple bucks," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, yeah, it's acknowledging that at some level this is just cheap entertainment.
Fair enough.
But that's what I mean. There's another side of it, which, let's be honest here, is intellect porn. It's basically, or belief porn, maybe is a better word, where you just say to people, "Hey, look, you know that thing? Well, this is really what it would look like." You know, wink, wink.
Well, I mean, to that point, though, Blair Witch, even though, I believe somewhere in the credits or whatever they say this is not actual footage, blah, 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 this was all fake.
Any resemblance.
They fully admitted that it was just a marketing ploy, but people legitimately believed that was all real for years after that movie came out.
What was that fucking movie with Scarlett Johansson in it? The Owl is Not an Owl. Fuck. Something like that. Anyway, there was this movie Scarlett Johansson was in, set in Nome, Alaska, and supposedly the people in Nome, Alaska got really fucking shitty about the way it depicted the police force in the town of Nome, Alaska, because people started ragging on them pretty hard due to that movie. So, yeah, like I said, found footage is fine, but you gotta temper the marketing, or people will not get that it's a fucking movie, you moron.
Well, you think once you start getting, professional actors in it, it's kind of losing its charm a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
that was right. They used the line, "This is a..." Sorry, say again?
I'm sorry. Both of you were talking at the same time. What were you saying,
I
Steve?
said part of the charm comes from having no names. That's part of why the early ones worked as well as
Yeah.
they did, because they had no budget.
Well, interestingly enough, I don't like Blair Witch, but I think I'm more fascinated by how they made Blair Witch than by the movie itself.
That's fair.
Because they legitimately just gave the actors the camera and told them to go get lost in the woods, basically. And then the crew kind of tracked them and followed them out there, but stayed hidden. And then, at night they just went around the woods of where the actors were camped, making noises to freak them the fuck out. And then when they go into town, when the actors go into town to talk to people about the witch and stuff, the production crew hired good actors to be around when they're interviewing people and to tell really fucking creepy stories, improvised stories about the Blair Witch. And so it just everything about that just to traumatize the actors, I find more fascinating than the movie itself.
That is messed up. Cool, but messed up.
Right?
But this is where I keep saying to people, you gotta have commitment to your art, and I'll give it. That's avant-garde. That's experimental filmmaking. And it made a shit ton of money for the shoestring budget that it had. And one thing, if you ever want to see a fad blow up in the movie industry, do something on a budget that makes a shit ton of money. That's why Clerks got so big. God, help me, that made a lot of money. And it's a good film, don't get me wrong, but not the point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I come down on it. There are some, you could always argue that there are some people who always take some forms of media way too seriously. But yeah, when it comes to found footage, at some point you have to just say, wait a second, they're putting on in a mainstream movie theater, maybe this isn't some great secretly smuggled out revelation,
I'd be curious how far you could go with found footage before people like, really start to just not accept it at all. Like, because obviously that happened, but where was that line at, you know?
Yeah, like, what was it specifically about some of these movies that made people not want to see them anymore? I mean, you could make Paranormal Activity an anomaly just because there were so many of them that people got bored. But what about the rest?
Yeah, like, what made people just... Was it just Hollywood oversaturated it? I think that's certainly part of it. But,
I think that's an issue, but I think maybe the bigger reason is just that they all have the same formula.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you look at all the found footage movies, and the scores are pretty identical. The beats for the film are pretty identical. The setups are identical. The main character's stupidity, age range, and stuff are pretty identical. So maybe at a point, it's just like you felt like you were watching the same movie over and over again.
Yeah, and it certainly didn't help that the studios, and as you said, Steve, they eventually just became professionally made movies with shitty camera work.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of that's always the thing that's turned me off horror films. I mean, you've seen one, you've seen them all. I mean, especially from the 1980s. God help me, the 1980s. You know, but
you should watch Hellraiser then.
But no, I mean, I can see your point, because it's exactly like why I think the slashers died out, is just because they became the same movie over and over again.
Yeah, blood, guts, and boobs. Seriously, that's the actual name of the song somebody wrote about just that thing.
Yeah, I believe you. And I mean, it's weird because horror has that thing where very rarely does something original come around, and then when it finally does, everything moves and copies that for probably a good 10 years.
Which I wish happened with It Follows.
It Follows?
Yeah, but instead you get The Witch, which is awful.
I still haven't seen that, but...
Don't.
I want to, out of curiosity. I just want to see if I'm the middle ground between all three of you in that review, but we'll see.
I want to see that live stream with both of us drinking at the same time. That would be funny.
I hated that movie so much.
I listened to that episode. It was entertaining.
Well, I'm glad something good came of that pile of garbage.
Actually, come to think of it, here's a question for you. Would the podcast series Welcome to Night Vale count as found footage?
No.
Technically speaking, a lot of it's meant to be done in real time, and a lot of it is meant to be done on the spot.
No, you know what would count as found audio or whatever would be, and he doesn't do it anymore, it would be Jebediah Springsteen. Or Joe Frank, which was what inspired the Jebediah Springsteen series Milan did.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember hearing that. But, yeah, sorry. It's like Jebediah Springsteen. I know I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. Joe Frank, since that was the inspiration, I'll talk about Joe Frank. It would come on NPR at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So you would have no idea what you were listening to. And the best way I can think of to describe Joe Frank is imagine that you're listening to your radio at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, news or music or whatever's on, and then the signal suddenly drops, and then you just start hearing a guy talking and ranting about really, really crazy shit, and then you just realize, oh, some motherfucker in his basement with like a naked light bulb hanging down above his head pirated my damn radio signal. Great. And now he's just ranting into the world, into the void, and you have to listen to it. That is the only way I could describe Joe Frank, and it's what I wanted Milan to do with it, and I thought it was great when he was doing it, and for some reason he hates the videos now. People leave comments supporting Jebediah Springsteen, because I want Milan to bring him back. Anyway. So like Joe Frank Joe Frank would just go on these fucking batshit crazy, like, stories that he'd tell. What was the one? Or no, this wasn't one of his stories, but he was talking about how natural disasters, like, kept happening, and how we needed to fight back against Mother Nature. So he goes, like, it's like tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes. All of these have claimed thousands of lives throughout human history, massive devastation, and huge amounts of property damage, all because we just think that we can let the wind push us around. But I'm here to tell you, we don't have to do that anymore. We can imprison the wind in giant balloons. I have a balloon here in the studio tonight, and I'm going to imprison some air inside of it. And then, for the next 30 seconds or so, you hear him literally blowing up a balloon and then tying it shut. And he's like, good. How does it feel to be trapped inside there? Yeah, you float down onto the floor where you belong. So it's legitimately insane, but also hilarious. And, it only got more ridiculous from there. At one point, he was a Bible salesman, but the Bibles he was selling were, bastardized because the company that made them didn't have enough paper to print the full Bible, so it only printed about half the Bible and then just stuck in other pages from, recycled newspapers and magazines. So he goes on this whole thing about how, you could be reading a section from Leviticus and also learn how to pave your driveway.
I mean, that's helpful for the Bible study on the go.
Right? Anyway, he would sell those Bibles door to door, and it's just really funny.
So not quite found footage, but pretty funny anyway.
Well, I mean, it just the way he was talking like that. He was telling these really crazy stories, and just it would come on at 3 a.m. and imagine you're a truck driver who is constantly on the move throughout the night, and when you're on the highway moving, you lose and gain radio stations the further away you go. And so, you just lose one radio station, you start searching stations, and then suddenly it's just yeah, we're gonna imprison the air, comes on the fucking radio to you, and you're like, what the shit am I listening to? So it is the closest approximation I can think of for found footage in audio format.
Nice.
It just sounds like pirate radio broadcast. Yeah, Joe Frank was fucking hysterical.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean when I say, the parody found footage movie, you could do kind of a bastardized version of The Office, with that, and it would probably be, and if you did it right, it would be downright hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, A Haunted House was pretty fucking crude and raunchy, but it was, I laughed. I thought it was pretty damn funny. I haven't seen A Haunted House 2, but I laughed my ass off at A Haunted House.
They did recycle one joke from The Simpsons, which I still think worked well, as long as you update it every couple of years. The joke was from The Simpsons when Ned Flanders watches Fox TV and watches Married with Children. And it's the network is true. Watch Fox and ye be damned forever. They've recycled a version of that, which is where what was the guy's name? The Exorcist goes, "You let them into this house. The demons? No, the Kardashians." And it's the same joke, but it still works. But that's what I mean when I say. It's genre. It can be genre specific in what kind of audience you're pitching to with a found footage film. It's the illusion that it gives you the raw taste of what it'd be like to see something like this up close and personal.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing: I've seen some professional movie productions where if you can do it from the victim's point of view when they're saved by a superhero, especially like Batman or someone who's got the whole terror angle going for, antagonizing the perpetrator.
I mean, that was one of the really cool parts of the Joker blogs thing is so Joker, basically stops a wedding in a church at night, and suddenly the lights go out and everyone kind of scatters except Joker and the cameraman, and then you just quickly see a little flash of a bat cape or whatever, and then all of a sudden Joker falls over and the camera kind of shakes and you just see 3 batarangs and a wood panel right behind them, and then they take off down some stairs, and you got the Joker slams the door behind him and he's trying to brace himself up against the door on the stairs, and the cameraman's pointing at it, and you just see the door getting kicked to shit, and the Joker's trying his best to keep it closed, and then, you know, it gets kicked again, and they all go tumbling down the stairs together. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, like, you know, it's not the best costuming and everything, but, like, that's what it would feel like to be on the receiving end of a Batman attack.
I always thought it'd be a really cool way to introduce a Batman movie in a found footage style, where you just look at him from the perspective of, holy shit, there is a force of nature after me.
Yeah, totally.
That's why I love that scene in Batman Begins so much, when he's at the docks in costume for the first time.
Oh, yeah, and, like, you just see it from the perspective of the criminals, and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah. You could do a Christopher Nolan job on, well, maybe not quite Christopher Nolan's writing, but you can definitely do a Christopher Nolan directing style on the Creeper, you know, being the guy who may be good, may be bad, but mostly is just trying to have fun while dealing with a bunch of superheroes, including Batman. That, as a found footage movie that it turns out that he's editing later on.
To write the Creeper.
Sorry?
I want Grant Morrison to write the Creeper, because he's so good at just, like, the really odd stuff in the DC universe that no one else ever touches.
It's weird that he hasn't already.
Like, because, you know, you read Seven Soldiers, and that's pretty much just Grant Morrison's love letter to everything that, like, no one ever talks about anymore in the DC universe. Like, everyone always tries to pretend that the DC universe is just our world, but with superheroes, and that's exactly what it is. But at a certain point, you've changed reality so much by adding all these different concepts that it can no longer be our world. So you've just got this really fucking goofy, wacky world that you live in, and so the Creeper would just be a really fun character to view that all through.
Especially considering he used to be a journalist.
No,
yeah.
The Creeper as a journalist that's actually kind of an interesting idea. You know, like him documenting stuff, but doing it in this irreverent, kind of anachronistic Deadpool-esque way. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, quit trying to make Harley Quinn the DC Deadpool. Make it the Creeper.
Yeah, no, Harley Quinn's pretty awesome as a character.
Yeah, but not as DC's Deadpool. I don't like that approach to her at all.
No, DC's Deadpool ruins the joke of Harley Quinn. And I don't like Harley Quinn very much at all, but the making her Deadpool just changes who she is fundamentally.
Yeah, like, I think Harley Quinn's an incredibly interesting idea for a character. I just think she's very hard to get right.
Yeah.
Steve, did you read the Joker's Asylum Harley Quinn book?
I did not. I have the trades for a lot of the Joker Asylum stuff, but I haven't read the Harley Quinn one.
Yeah, read that one. It's probably the best comic book story she's ever had.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I really like some of her appearances when Paul Dini's writing them. And then there's that stuff in Clown at Midnight where she shows up and Joker's completely different and it's horrifying.
Yeah, and she's like, she doesn't recognize him anymore and stuff, yeah. She's a very hard character to write correctly.
I mean, particularly when you don't have the filter of TV censorship and the Joker is just outright murdering people.
Yeah. It's always really problematic to write Harley Quinn well. The Batman totally fucked it.
I liked her in that show. I thought she was fun.
Oh, God, no. I hate her in that show.
I like her in that show. Okay, we'll have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we're going to do a top 5 The Batman episode. Well, you'll get a top 10 episodes. We'll do top 5 each, is what it's going to come down to.
So it will be a top 10.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to do 5, I'm going to do 5, so the viewer's going to get 10 best the Batman episodes. So, you know, it all works out.
We'll get onto that later. Trust me.
Certain.
It's a found footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, Ian. I'm totally going to have to give you my next couple of days off because I'm going on a massive trip in a couple of weeks. My mate's got not just a Bucks night, a Bucks week. So, yeah. We're basically going to be touring around Sydney, New Zealand. We're going to be going international on this one.
Cool.
My passport's up to date. Anyway, aside from that. Sorry?
Have fun with that.
Anyways.
Okay, does anyone have anything else they want to say about found footage, or are we pretty well done on this one?
Just that, thank God it's petered out, because now it means that the only people who are going to bring it back are the people who are actually trying to do it properly.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with that one.
Yeah, no, I do too, because there's just so much potential to the idea, and I feel like we've never really tapped into it.
Well,
Yeah, so it's just like there have been things that have done interesting stuff with it, but it just needs more, polish.
Yeah, it's like symbolism and thematicism in movies. Like, there's been a real downdrop of that. I'm starting to think. Now, here's the only time I'm ever going to say this. Atlas Shrugged. Anyway, that book. See, I can only say the actual title once. That book had some interesting things going through it. Better pronounced, it would have made it marginally more palatable. But yeah, that's the what do you call it? That's there's a lot of things that need to be just spruced up, redone, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
And not to make us go on a whole separate tangent, but Ian, considering how much you enjoy phenomenology, you would think found footage would be the perfect exercise of that kind of philosophy on film, and we've never done it.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into that. I'll really quickly, for people that don't know what that word means, phenomenology is the study of lived experience. So my go-to example is, you ever look at your watch and then put your arm down and then have no idea what time it is? The thinking about stuff like that is phenomenology, in the most shallow way possible, but it is. And so you think you could do some really interesting stuff with found footage in that way. I mean, to be fair, it'd probably be kind of boring, Steve.
I'd enjoy it. I think it'd be interesting. But
there's a lot of gaslighting.
Is Peter Sellers? What's the Peter Sellers movie that's all about phenomenology? It's like Bean or something. Bean in Time. That's
Heidegger.
There's a Peter Sellers movie that's all about being. And there's long sections of the movie where the dude will just like stand there.
Being there.
Yeah, there it is.
Being there. I just Wikipedia'd it.
Yeah, he's just standing in the middle of like the road or whatever, just not doing anything except trying to be in the moment. So I think you could probably do some interesting stuff with that, with found footage, just because the camera is literally taking you away from the moment. So that'd be kind of fascinating, actually.
And have you seen the Coen Brothers movie, A Serious Band? That does sort of a similar thing. So yeah, I think found footage would be great for that. There's just so much you could do with the genre and the technique that hasn't really shown up yet, and that's a shame.
Yeah, I think it's still in its infancy because it was something that no studio would have signed off on in the early days of cinema, and then so much of modern cinema from the 70s until the early 2000s, late 90s maybe, was just about trying to tell better stories, or trying to do different stories than the kinds of stuff that you saw in early Hollywood because of all the censorship, that they didn't really have a lot of time to experiment with the actual tenets of filmmaking to that degree. And so now we're getting found footage. So right now it's still pretty much in its infancy, and it had a big spike, and now it'll peter out and become just a technique. But I'm sure we'll see a resurgence of it, but it'll be by people who actually who grew up with the found footage craze and have interesting ideas based around that. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops.
No, absolutely.
Okay, you two talk for a minute. I got to figure out what we're reviewing next week.
Yes, we need to fill time, not have dead air.
The Batman. So, man, for a while there, I thought I was the only person who'd actually seen it.
No, I love that show. It's so underrated, and I don't understand why. I think it's really good. I mean, it's got issues, but no more so than animated series.
I think a little more so, but that's fair.
No, I don't know. I feel like animated series has such a good to bad episode ratio that even when it looks really good and it's fun to watch, I still think The Batman holds its own against it. It does a lot of stuff better than that show.
Well, see, my argument for The Batman is, while it's a lot better than this, I've always compared it to Smallville for Batman fans. When it got something right, it got it damn near perfect.
Yes.
But when it got something wrong, it just fucked up so badly.
See, I never thought of it that way. I always thought animated series was that way. I thought animated series was when it fucked up, it was fucking awful. And when it was great, it was brilliant. And then The Batman is that good middle ground.
Okay, so that's interesting.
I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Batman was a bad show. It wasn't. The thing with the Batman was like it was fun and it kept a little bit of the wackiness. The trick with Batman is you got to balance it for TV between ultra super serious hardcore detective stories and murder plots and the wacky campy Batman of the Silver Age.
Yeah. So anyway, not reviewing the Batman.
Not yet.
Okay. I found what I want to talk about, but it'll be a matter of whether or not anyone's able to get it.
This will be fun.
Go on.
Joker's Last Laugh.
I have that. Let me check really quick.
I've never read that.
I haven't read that in a long time, but I do have it somewhere.
Okay.
You were talking about that 2001 story where everyone dies by the end, right?
Not everyone.
Like Dick
I
Grayson
don't think
dies and.
No, Dick Grayson definitely does not die. I specifically remember the ending of that book, and Dick Grayson is 100% not dead.
Okay, a Robin character does die over that somewhere though. I think I don't remember.
Well, basically, the premise of it is Joker gets diagnosed with, like, I think it's cancer or something.
Yeah, he has, like, one last hurrah against his Bat family.
Yeah, it's absolutely batshit insane, and I fucking love it.
Okay, I do have it, so this will be fun. All right.
Okay, cool. We'll talk about Joker's Last Laugh, and I'll get someone on board for that one. Ozzy, if you're able to... Oh, wait, no, you said you're going on vacations. Never mind.
Yeah, sorry, man. That's
cool.
Where you're catching Anzac Day over in New Zealand. Should be bitching.
Have fun with that. All right, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Next week, tune in for Joker's Last Laugh. I would do Batman Superman, but Steve's going to have to, like, review that 7,000 times with other people anyway, so I'm just
going to do it once with Cap. I'll probably end up doing it with someone else. I'll probably do the spoiler cast. It's going to be
yeah. So I'll just avoid that. Anyway, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the Politician.
I'm stuck in footage. Help!
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.